Imagine this: a young woman, trembling with embarrassment, rushes into the emergency room for something she never thought she would have to face: an intimate medical emergency. She wants to disappear, to hide from every eye, but little does she know that this very night will change her life forever. Because the doctor who walks into her room isn't just any physician, he's a man with a secret of his own. He's a millionaire who has spent his fortune helping others, a man who has everything yet feels empty, until he meets her. And their story? It begins right here. Sophia was 24, soft-spoken, shy to the point where even ordering coffee at a cafe made her nervous. She worked part-time at a bookstore, the kind of girl who found safety between the pages of novels rather than in crowded rooms. But that night, she didn't have time to hide. Pain gripped her lower stomach, sharp and unbearable. Fear rose in her chest as she realized she needed help. The word ER echoed in her mind like a terrifying place filled with strangers who would see her vulnerability. Still, she gathered her courage, wrapped herself in her oversized sweater, and stepped into the hospital. The waiting room felt endless. Sophia kept her head down, cheeks flushed, afraid that everyone somehow knew why she was there. When her name was finally called, her heart hammered. She whispered a prayer that the doctor would be kind, professional, and quick. What she didn't pray for, what she didn't dare imagine, was that the doctor would notice her in a way no one else ever had. Doctor Adrian Miller walked in, calm, tall, with the kind of presence that instantly softened a room. He wasn't the type to flaunt his wealth or reputation. Few knew he had built clinics overseas, donated millions to charities, and yet still chose to work night shifts in the ER. He liked being close to people when they needed help most. But even he wasn't prepared for the girl sitting nervously on the hospital bed, wringing her hands, eyes darting away from his gaze. "Hi, Sophia," he said gently, reading her chart. "You're safe here. Tell me what's going on." Her voice cracked as she explained, stumbling over words, her face turning red. It wasn't life-threatening, but it was an intimate, painful condition that required immediate attention. She expected him to look annoyed or clinical, but instead, his voice was patient, his eyes warm. He didn't rush her, didn't judge. For the first time, Sophia felt seen. As he treated her, Adrian noticed something rare. It wasn't just her beauty, though even hidden behind anxiety, she was striking. It was her humility, her honesty, the way she apologized even for being in pain, as if her suffering was an inconvenience to others. When she whispered thank you with tears brimming in her eyes, something inside him shifted. Sophia left that night thinking she'd never see him again. He was just a doctor, after all, and she was just another patient. But Adrian couldn't shake her from his mind. He looked up her discharge file, not crossing professional boundaries, but just enough to check on her recovery. Days later, fate intervened. He walked into her bookstore while searching for a gift for his niece. There she was, behind the counter, eyes widening the moment she recognized him. Her instinct was to duck, to pretend she hadn't seen him, but he smiled, putting her at ease. "Small world," he said, holding up a book. And just like that, a new chapter began. Over time, their paths kept crossing. He would stop by the store, she would ask shyly about his medical work, and he found himself opening up in ways he never had with anyone. He told her about the children's hospitals he funded overseas, the lonely dinners in mansions that felt like cages, and how money never healed the emptiness inside him. Sophia, in turn, shared her fears, her struggle with confidence, her quiet dream of becoming a writer someday but never believing she was good enough. The challenge came when Sophia found out who he really was. A magazine article revealed Adrian's fortune, branding him the millionaire doctor. She felt betrayed, convinced he was too far out of reach. "You don't belong in my world," she whispered one evening when he tried to walk her home. Her walls shot up again, and Adrian faced his greatest test, proving that love was about heart, not status. He didn't give up. Instead of grand gestures with wealth, he did the simplest things. He brought her tea during her shifts, left encouraging notes in the books she stocked, listened when she doubted herself, and reminded her that her words mattered. Slowly, her walls crumbled. Slowly, she believed the final turning point came when Sophia entered a small writing contest. Adrian showed up secretly, sitting in the back of the room as she read her story aloud, voice trembling but steady. When the applause filled the hall, she looked up and saw him there, clapping the loudest, his eyes shining with pride. It was in that moment she realized love wasn't about perfection or grand wealth. It was about someone choosing to stay, to believe in you when you couldn't believe in yourself. Their story didn't end with the ER visit. It began there. And as Adrian held her hand outside the bookstore one evening, telling her he didn't want riches or recognition, only her, Sophia finally allowed herself to smile without fear, because sometimes life's most painful nights lead us to the people we're meant to find, and that's the story of the shy girl who walked into the ER, unaware that her doctor wasn't just a millionaire, but the man who would fall for her, and teach her that love is the greatest kind of healing. Sparkle's inspiring message to close. Life often leads us through moments of vulnerability, times when we feel small and unseen. But sometimes, it's in those very moments that love finds us, quietly, unexpectedly, and beautifully.